Police officers should be someone you can trust. Expect to tell the truth, especially under oath.
But new questions about whether a Detroit police officer was being honest in a deposition could put an important federal case in jeopardy.
7 investigator Ross Jones shows us why the indictment of a former Detroit deputy chief is not the end of the story for the towing controversy in Detroit.
Significant betrayal to this organization, this department, and this city.
When former Deputy Chief Celia Washington was indicted earlier this year, accused of taking bribes in exchange for steering tow contracts, Detroit Police Chief James Craig didn't mince words.
Your actions reflect back on this police department. That stain is present, and we're certainly deeply troubled.
But now, Washington's indictment is shedding light on some shifting stories by a DPD officer when he was under oath, and it could pose challenges to the Fed's case against the now former deputy chief. In 2016, deposed in an unrelated case, Detroit police officer Kenyatta Myers testified that I am the person that's in charge of the police-authorized towers. When lawyers pressed him, he was unequivocal. Was there anybody else involved in the process, he was asked? No. Did you consult with anybody? No, Myers said. Advice from anyone else? Myers said no. But earlier this year, in a sworn affidavit submitted by the city, Myers said that when it came to towing contracts, he worked under the direction of Deputy Chief Washington, saying she had the lead role in this process that the feds now say was corrupt.
In my 10 years of law practice, I have no better example of inconsistent statements than his affidavit and his transcripts.
Mark Delden is an attorney for Nationwide Towing, a longtime DPD tower until this past July, when the city suspended its towing permit, claiming it was involved in a scheme to steal cars. Company officials deny this, have never been charged, and filed a lawsuit against the city for, they say, improperly suspending their permit. That's the suit that uncovered the inconsistent statements of Officer Myers.
He took 2 separate oaths and he told 2 separate stories. Both of them cannot be true.
Why would it help the city's argument for this affidavit to be true?
The city wants to establish what I'm calling the Celia Washington defense. And that's that Celia Washington ran everything. She created these rules. This is all completely false.
Whether Washington or Myers was in charge of the towing contracts will be argued in court, but in the short term, according to former federal prosecutor Peter Henning, it creates questions about Officer Myers' credibility.
One of these two is true. The question is which one, and only through some mental gymnastics could you claim that they're consistent.
For the city's part, it did try, telling us that Myers thought he was speaking about uniformed officers and not civilian officers like Washington. Henning says arguments like that would be tough for city lawyers to win.
The lawyer asked very open-ended questions. Did you speak with anyone else? Which means it's going to be difficult to say, well, I thought it only meant, for example, uniformed personnel. They are almost completely irreconcilable.
And on top of that, Henning says, Myers' inconsistencies could have the unintended consequence of hurting the Fed's case against Washington, or at least making it harder.
She can point the finger at someone else, and now you've got someone who has given apparently inconsistent statements. That might help her defense in the federal case.
When city lawyers learned of Officer Myers' conflicting statements, they had his affidavit withdrawn and stricken from the court record. Police Chief James Craig's office declined comment for this story, but said they are looking into Officer Myers' testimony. I'm Ross Jones, 7 Action News.
All right, thank you much, Ross.